I was the scion of a wealthy family, branded a cold-blooded tyrant, yet I never laid a single finger on my rival. Even the leg of vengeance they all gossiped about was nothing more than a fracture he got from drunkenly tumbling down a flight of stairs. When I presented the notarized hospital report and surveillance video on a live stream, people still screamed that the evidence was photoshopped and the officials were bribed. But then the camera panned to a notary from City Hall who officially stamped the documents, confirming their authenticity. The entire internet fell silent, finally realizing they had been nothing but pawns, their emotions manipulated from the very beginning. This was the third time I had smelled a man's cologne on my fiancée. The scent was unmistakable, identical to the one her male assistant always wore. In that moment, I knew Olivia had fallen for another man. I couldn't tolerate it. I called off the engagement on the spot. She broke down, sobbing uncontrollably, and swore she would cut all ties with the assistant immediately. From that day forward, she said she would love only me. Considering our families had been close since we were children, I gritted my teeth and gave her one last chance. But just 3 days later, Olivia brazenly appeared at the autumn charity ball. She was pushing her male assistant, Leo, who was seated in a wheelchair. When I confronted her, she practically screamed at me. "Lucas, you can use your power to own me, but you will never have my heart. Leo is the one who truly loves me. Even if you break his other leg, or even kill him, he won't leave me for some so-called bright future. For true love, we have no regrets." The entire ballroom erupted. In an instant, in everyone's eyes, I was the villain. I was the cold, ruthless monster forcing her into a loveless marriage. Facing the shocked and disapproving stares from all around, I simply allowed a faint smile to touch my lips. If this was the role they had already cast for me, I might as well play the villain to the very end. After Olivia's hysterical accusations died down, the ballroom fell into a strange, momentary silence. The guests, who had initially just been startled by her outburst, quickly shifted their confused expressions to looks of utter disgust and contempt. I can't believe the Morgan family heir is that kind of person. Forcing her to marry him and then breaking that other man's leg? That's just barbaric. You really can't judge a person by their appearance. The Morgan Empire is massive, yet their heir is a complete monster. No wonder Miss Hayes was so overwrought. She must have been going through hell. The whispers swelled around me like a rising tide, each one louder than the last. But I stood my ground, motionless, my face a mask of indifference. My cold gaze swept over Olivia, and then to the man in the wheelchair before her, Leo. Olivia, emboldened by her own so-called bravery and propelled by the crowd's reaction, moved forward. Tears streamed down her face as she gripped the handles of Leo's wheelchair. She looked like a martyr, ready to die for love, willing to sacrifice everything rather than surrender. Leo raised his head, his face ashen. His eyes were a mixture of pain and a carefully manufactured expression of stoic resolve. He began to speak slowly, his voice trembling as if he were fighting to suppress some immense inner terror. "Mr. Morgan, this is all my fault," he began. "I couldn't control my feelings. I fell in love with Olivia. She has nothing to do with this. I'm begging you, please be merciful. Spare the Hayes family, and spare Olivia." He took a deep breath as if to steady himself, forcing his back to straighten. He continued, his words deliberately clear. "If you're still not satisfied, then direct your anger at me. Beat me, kill me, I don't care. I, Leo Vance, will not utter a single word of complaint. My only request is that you stop tormenting her." His noble, self-sacrificing speech immediately stirred a fresh wave of sympathy from the crowd. Some whispered that Leo was brave and took responsibility. Others sighed for Olivia, lamenting her misfortune at being engaged to someone like me. Every ounce of blame landed squarely on me. The Morgan family heir was now a power-abusing bully, a cruel tyrant tearing two true lovers apart. Olivia was fully immersed in her role. She suddenly burst into tears, throwing herself onto Leo. "Leo, don't say another word. I won't let you die for me. If we have to die, we'll die together. It was a scene straight out of a tear-jerking soap opera. If I weren't the fiancé who had actually been cheated on, I might have even applauded their so-called epic romance. I let out a laugh. It sounded jarring in the tense atmosphere, and every eye in the room instantly snapped to me. Shock and unease were written on every face. "Go after you," I repeated his words, my voice quiet but laced with an unnerving chill. "Leo, who do you think you are? Do you really think you're important enough for me to waste my time on?" I took 2 steps forward, my gaze passing right over him to land directly on Olivia's face. "Olivia, 3 days ago, when you stood before me, swearing you would break things off with this man for good, you cried the very same tears. You knelt and begged me to forgive you. So what makes these tears any more genuine now? Is it just because you have a bigger audience today?" The color drained from Olivia's face, and her eyes darted around in panic. But she quickly tightened her grip on Leo and shrieked, "Lucas, that's enough. I only said those things because you forced me to. I was terrified you would do something horrible to Leo. I was just trying to save myself. Now I understand. It's useless to run. You'll never leave Leo alone. You just want to grind our love into dust. True love." I raised an eyebrow. "This is what you call true love? Parading your lover around in a wheelchair in front of everyone, just so they'll all pity him? Is this your idea of protecting the love of your life?" It seemed her true love didn't come at a very high price. Olivia was trembling with rage, rendered speechless for a moment. Leo quickly reached for her hand, giving her fingers a reassuring squeeze before looking back up at me. "Mr. Morgan, I know you hate me," he said. "I'm the one who ruined your engagement to Olivia. For that, I am truly sorry. If you want revenge, take it out on me. Humiliate me, torture me, do whatever you want. But please, don't tarnish the love Olivia once had for you." I arched an eyebrow. "The two of you keep insisting that I'm a cruel, cold-blooded man who forced her into this marriage." I paused, the smile vanishing from my face as my expression turned to ice. "Well, since you've already decided that's who I am, it would be a shame to disappoint you by not living up to the reputation you've given me, wouldn't it? It would be a waste of your epic, dramatic performance, and a deep disappointment to our audience." I took a step forward, closing in on the pair of star-crossed lovers. Leo instinctively tried to back away, but the wheelchair wouldn't budge, leaving him no choice but to stare up at me nervously. Olivia immediately moved to shield him, glaring at me as she bluffed, "What do you think you're doing? In front of all these people, you wouldn't dare lay a hand on Leo." "Relax," I said, my tone casual, as if I were merely discussing the weather. "I'm not going to touch a hair on his head. At least, not right now." My eyes drifted down to the cast on Leo's leg, and I added with a meaningful tone, "A broken leg needs to heal properly. After all, you have a long road ahead of you. Of course, there's another possibility. Perhaps soon, you'll be going somewhere you won't need legs at all." With that, I ignored the shocked gasps and horrified stares from the crowd. I treated their stunned, uncertain glances as if they were nothing but air, not even bothering to look their way. I turned and walked straight out of the ballroom. I had just stepped into my car when a call came in from Olivia's father. "Lucas," he began with a heavy sigh. "That daughter of mine, Olivia, her mother and I spoiled her rotten. She's always been so stubborn. You were humiliated in public today, and on her behalf, I want to apologize." He paused, clearly waiting for me to offer some polite response so he could continue. I said nothing. After a moment of silence on his end, he forced himself to continue, his voice now laced with resignation and a hint of accusation. "But Lucas, no matter how angry you were, you really shouldn't have sent someone to break Leo's leg. That was taking things too far. If word of this gets out, it won't be good for the Morgan family's reputation, don't you think?" A cold laugh from me cut off his carefully phrased lecture. "Mr. Hayes, what makes you so certain I was the one who sent someone to break Leo's leg?" He was silent for a few seconds, then adopted the tone of a lecturing elder, his voice rising in self-righteousness. "If it wasn't you, who else could have been? Lucas, it's obvious, isn't it? This happens right after Leo gets close to Olivia. We're not fools. I smiled, but it held no warmth. Since you're so convinced it was me, Mr. Hayes, I'll accept the blame. And it's not just about this leg. I've already put a down payment on the other one. You'd best advise him to get used to life in a wheelchair. Mr. Hayes finally dropped his polite facade, his voice sharp. Lucas, are you really determined to push this to the point of no return? Our families have been friends for generations. Are you really going to burn that all down for some outsider? Yes, I answer without a shred of hesitation. Since the Hayes family has chosen its side, Mr. Hayes, I'll make it easy for you. This is cleaner. 2 years ago, during a Morgan family gala, Mr. Hayes took an opportunity between toasts to lead my father and me to a small, private meeting room. After some small talk, he carefully brought up a verbal marriage agreement made years ago between my late grandfather and his own father. It was an old arrangement, long forgotten, especially since the Hayes family's fortunes had been in a steep decline for years. That day, his demeanor was incredibly deferential, his posture carefully respectful, as he repeatedly stressed the long-standing friendship between our families. Robert, he said to my father, I know it's presumptuous of me to bring this up, but before my own father passed, the one thing he couldn't stop worrying about was Olivia's future. It's our own fault. The Hayes family just couldn't keep up with the times. He let out a long sigh, but his eyes remained locked on my father's face. My father has always been a man of his word, and he placed great importance on my grandfather's wishes. Don't say that, David, he replied. Since our fathers arranged this match, it's our duty as their sons to see it through. I had met Olivia a few times and had no objections, so I agreed. From that day forward, the Morgan family began to support the Hayes family in every way possible. The Hayes Group, once a second-tier company on the verge of collapse, suddenly began receiving massive orders. Capital flowed in endlessly, and my family connected them with all the right people. The Hayes family's revenue skyrocketed. In just 2 years, they took the company public and joined the ranks of the city's elite. Mr. Hayes went from being a small business owner who had to bow and scrape to everyone he met to the confident chairman of a publicly traded company. And as for Olivia, as her fiancée, I know I did right by her. She loved jewelry, particularly the work of one specific designer. The man lived in Europe and was notoriously elusive, but after a great deal of effort, I managed to contact him. I then spent 6 months commissioning a one-of-a-kind diamond necklace and earring set for her birthday. That day, she was the center of attention, the envy of all her friends. For those 2 years, whether at a formal business dinner or a private party, whenever she was by my side, I made sure she was treated with the highest respect. Once, at a reception, some tactless heir from another family made an inappropriate comment to her. I shut him down so thoroughly that he left the party in complete humiliation. After that, everyone in our circle knew that Olivia Hayes was my future wife, and no one dared to disrespect her again. I used my resources to build up her family's company, and I used my patience and wealth to slowly win her heart. I never imagined that my reward would be such a meticulously planned betrayal, capped off by a public spectacle designed to nail me to a pillar of shame. When I got home, I called my father. I gave him a brief rundown of the evening's events, including the ridiculous, accusatory phone call from Mr. Hayes. My father was silent for a moment. Lucas, he said, the Morgan family is not to be trifled with. Since the Hayes family has chosen to throw away years of friendship and brought things to this point, you do whatever you think is necessary. Handle it. I've got your back. With his blessing, my last reservation vanished. That night, I issued a series of directives. Effective immediately, the Morgan Group and all its subsidiaries were to suspend all cooperation with the Hayes Group. I also informed all of our business partners that any future collaboration with the Hayes Group would be viewed as a direct move against the Morgan family. The orders went out late that night. The vast, precise machine that is the Morgan Empire immediately began to turn its gears, operating with cold, brutal efficiency. The next morning, our company released an official statement. The wording was careful, but the message was unmistakable. We were formally severing all ties with the Hayes Group. The announcement hit the market like a boulder dropped in a pond. Financial news outlets scrambled to cover the story. At the opening bell, the Hayes Group's stock price plummeted like a kite with its string cut. It fell so fast that trading was halted within 30 minutes. I sat in my office, watching the jarring red waterfall on the screen, my expression unchanged. Soon after, my personal cell phone rang. Olivia's name flashed on the screen. I answered and was met with a barrage of hysterical screaming. She was a world away from the tragic heroine dying for love that she had played the night before. "Lucas, are you insane? Do you have any idea what you're doing? Tell your company to retract that statement right now, or I swear you will regret this." I didn't even bother to respond. I just hung up and blocked her number. A threat? She clearly had no grasp of the situation, nor who was holding all the cards. However, the Hayes family's counterattack came faster and was far dirtier than I had anticipated. Around noon, the narrative online began to shift dramatically. A flood of dirt on me began to appear across all major social media platforms and forums, as if someone had hit a publish all button. The posts were eerily similar in their content, formatting, and phrasing, all clearly part of a well-organized, premeditated smear campaign. The attacks focused on three main points. First, that I was a power-hungry tyrant. A so-called former employee posted anonymously, claiming I was an autocrat at the office. The post alleged I frequently berated my subordinates, and even cited an example where I supposedly drove a long-time veteran employee to a mental breakdown and resignation over a trivial matter, nearly causing them to develop depression. This was proven with a blurry photo of me walking into my office with a stern expression. Second, that my personal life was a mess and I was morally corrupt. A self-proclaimed insider claimed that despite my engagement to Olivia, I was secretly keeping several mistresses on the side. They even named several college students, providing a slew of vague dates and locations, all described with enough convincing detail to seem plausible at first glance. Third, that I was completely unscrupulous. This point centered on the narrative that I, driven by jealousy, had hired thugs to break Leo's leg. They painted me as a ruthless, unhinged monster hell-bent on revenge. They portrayed me as the classic obsessive ex. If I can't have you, then no one can. This narrative tied in perfectly with the drama at the charity ball, and with a few ideanesses popping up to add their own embellishments, the story became incredibly inflammatory. To make matters worse, an army of bots and trolls immediately flooded the comment sections, furiously sharing and upvoting the posts, all spamming nearly identical, pre-written text. Hashtags like hashtag evil corporation, hashtag justice for Leo, and hashtag support true love quickly shot to the top of the trending list on Twitter. They had successfully reframed a purely business dispute as a personal vendetta, casting the Morgan family as the villains using their corporate power to crush a beautiful romance. Riding the wave of public sentiment, Olivia and Leo went live on a major streaming platform. On camera, Olivia's eyes were red and swollen from crying as she huddled next to Leo in his wheelchair. They looked like a pair of tragic victims, backed into a corner, but still fighting bravely. Through their tears, they gave an emotional and detailed account of my so-called atrocities. They spun a heart-wrenching tale of a pure love that was being brutally crushed by me and the Morgan family. Leo's performance was especially convincing. He would occasionally wince and furrow his brow in pain. Then, he would look at the camera with an expression of pained sincerity. "I don't blame Mr. Morgan," he said. "I only blame myself for my humble birth, for not being good enough for Olivia. That's what led to this catastrophe. But love itself is not a crime. And for this love, we will fight to the very end with no regrets." The livestream's comment section was completely overrun by bots and clueless onlookers. The screen was a waterfall of profanity directed at me, mixed with messages of sympathy and support for the star-crossed lovers. "Lucas Morgan can go to hell. The Morgan Group is going down. My heart goes out to Olivia and Leo. I hope you find happiness." The comments scrolled by in an endless stream. Any stray comment that tried to question their story or inject a bit of logic was instantly buried under an avalanche of insults, disappearing without a trace. The meticulously planned media campaign was working. After its steep drop in the morning, the Hayes Group stock began to stage a surprising comeback. Playing the underdog versus the evil corporation sympathy card, they attracted a swarm of emotional investors and speculators betting on the narrative. The stock reversed its course and began to climb. Meanwhile, the Morgan Group's stock began to slide. The sudden public relations crisis made the market nervous about potential damage to our brand and the possibility of regulatory scrutiny. I stared at the two starkly contrasting trend lines on my screen. The line for the Hayes Group was defying all logic and shooting upward, while the one for the Morgan Group was in a free fall. The cold light of the screen illuminated my face, but a smirk slowly formed on my lips. Let them have their little drama. Did they really think these pathetic media games could shake the foundations of the Morgan family? Did they truly believe that a little public sympathy and a few angry comments online could do me any real harm? How naive. They were treating the world of high finance like a stage for some cheap soap opera, forgetting who actually writes the rules of the game. Just as the Morgan Group's stock hit its daily trading limit, I got a call from Leo. This time he dropped the act. There was no weakness in his voice, only undisguised triumph. "Lucas, do you see the situation now?" he gloated. "Considering you spent the last 2 years slaving away for Olivia, I'll give you 2 choices. 1, you pay a $5 billion severance package, and you and Olivia part ways on good terms. Or 2, you can watch the Morgan empire crumble into bankruptcy until there's nothing left." I walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, phone in hand, and looked down at the stream of traffic below. My voice was as calm as if I were discussing the weather. "I'll choose a third option. I'm going to personally send you and the entire Hayes family straight to hell." There was a choked silence on the other end, followed by a roar of fury. "You're insane." I had no interest in hearing the rest. I hung up and turned off my phone. For the next 2 days, our company's stock price languished, and the online abuse continued unabated. The atmosphere in the company and among the board members was suffocating. But I went about my business as usual, holding meetings, signing documents, and approving proposals. By the morning of the 3rd day, our paper losses had exceeded $10 billion. I picked up my encrypted phone and sent a single, brief message: "Proceed." That evening, at 8 o'clock sharp, the Morgan Group's official live stream went live. The immediate flood of viewers nearly crashed the servers. At first, the live chat was a wall of pure hatred. How dare this disgusting filth go live? Lucas Morgan deserves to die a horrible death. I support Olivia and Leo. Morgan better go bankrupt soon. Die, you heartless capitalists. The insults flew across the screen. I sat before the camera, my expression serene, as if the venomous comments were nothing more than background noise. Good evening, everyone. My name is Lucas Morgan. I offer no pleasantries and cut straight to the chase. I'm holding this live stream tonight to directly address the recent series of false allegations made against me and against the Morgan Group. I motioned to an assistant, and the large screen behind me lit up, displaying the first piece of evidence. It was a clear surveillance video recorded 2 years prior in that small meeting room at the Morgan Gala. In the video, a desperate-sounding Mr. Hayes could be seen pleading with us, bringing up the old verbal marriage agreement and begging the Morgan family to honor it to save his failing company. His fawning, anxious, and subservient demeanor was a stark contrast to the confident corporate chairman he was today. The flood of insults in the live chat faltered, replaced by a stream of question marks. Then, the second piece of evidence appeared. It was a detailed diagnostic report from a hospital, accompanied by several security camera stills. The report clearly stated that Leo Vance's leg injury was the result of a drunken fall down the stairs in his own home. The incident had occurred the night before the charity ball. The surveillance footage was a bit grainy, but it clearly showed Olivia Hayes helping him into the emergency room, the time stamp perfectly legible. "It's fake. It has to be photoshopped." A few defiant comments appeared, but they were quickly overwhelmed by a growing tide of doubt. Then, The third piece of evidence appeared on the screen. It was another video. In it, Olivia's eyes were red from crying as she clung to my sleeve. It was from the day she had come to me, swearing she would cut all ties with Leo. "Lucas, I was wrong," she sobbed in the video. "I don't know what came over me. Please, just forgive me this one time. I swear I'll never see him again. He was the one who seduced me. I swear, you've always been the one I love." Her tearful, pleading demeanor was a world away from the martyr for love she had played at the ball. The live chat exploded. Public opinion was reversing in real time. What is this plot twist? Olivia Hayes deserves an Oscar for that performance. So Leo just fell down the stairs on his own? Her family begged for the engagement? That whole thing was an act. This is too much. My brain is short-circuiting. Just as the chat began demanding answers from the Hayes family, a new wave of bots flooded the stream, spamming in perfect unison. This evidence is obviously fake. Trying to fool us with fake documents? Money can buy anything, including photoshopped evidence. A corporation as big as Morgan could easily alter a security video. Don't be fooled, everyone. Support true love. I had anticipated this move. I looked directly into the camera, my voice calm and steady. "I understand your skepticism. That is precisely why, to ensure the authenticity and legality of all the evidence presented tonight, we have invited 2 public notaries from City Hall to be present to oversee and certify these proceedings." The camera slowly panned to the side, revealing 2 officials in formal suits. They sat at a table, their expressions serious, a neat stack of officially stamped documents before them. The older of the 2 addressed the camera. "This office has verified that all audio recordings, medical reports, and surveillance footage provided by Mr. Lucas Morgan this evening are authentic, valid, and legally admissible. The entire notarization process has been conducted in full accordance with all relevant legal procedures." His words had the effect of dumping a bucket of ice water on a grease fire. The live chat went into total meltdown. The presence of official public notaries, backed by the credibility of the city government, instantly turned the accusations of fake evidence into a complete joke. The sentiment in the chat did a complete 180. The sympathy for Olivia and Leo instantly curdled into rage at having been deceived. Holy crap, they brought in notaries? This has to be real. Olivia Hayes and Leo Vance need to get out here and apologize right now. So we were all just played for fools? This plot twist is the drama of the year. The Hayes family is finished. Watching the comments fly across the screen, I knew the time was right. It was time for the final blow. And now, regarding Mr. Leo Vance's professed true love for Miss Olivia Hayes, I said, slowing my pace to draw everyone's focus back to me. I have some additional materials that I believe you will all find very interesting. A final set of documents appeared on the screen. They were scans of notarized papers from overseas. The documents included a marriage certificate, a birth certificate, and several debt collection notices from a bank. They clearly showed that Mr. Leo Vance had been married for 3 years. His wife and son were currently living abroad. The documents also revealed he had an astronomical amount of debt with a local bank. In casinos all over the world, Leo Vance was a degenerate gambler, chased across the globe by his creditors. He was a married man who had racked up enormous gambling debts, all behind his family's back. As for why he had suddenly returned to the country, reconnected with his childhood friend Olivia, and so conveniently became her assistant, well, I'm sure you can all guess the reason. My voice was like ice. "Olivia, is this the true love you were willing to sacrifice everything for with no regrets? A married man with a wife and son who was just using you as a walking ATM?" The live chat fell silent for a beat before it was completely consumed by a tidal wave of comments. There was shock, mockery, and the fury of people who realized they'd been played for fools. It was all mixed with a sort of pitying scorn for Olivia's spectacular lack of judgment. The media war was over. I had won. I remained calm before the camera, but now my eyes held a look of cold, hard resolve. Then, speaking as the heir to the Morgan family, I announced that the Morgan Group would be filing a comprehensive lawsuit against Olivia Hayes and Leo Vance. The charges would include defamation and slander, and we would seek to recover the more than $10 billion in market value their malicious actions had cost our company. I also issued a solemn warning. Every public relations firm, online troll farm, and individual who participated in this malicious online attack would, without exception, be held legally accountable. The Morgan Group's legal team would cooperate with the authorities to investigate and bring every last person involved to justice. The moment I finished speaking, the most vitriolic accounts in the chat went silent, as if an invisible hand had muted them all at once. Whole swathes of them simply vanished. The live chat was suddenly much clearer. At that moment, the tide of public opinion across the entire internet had turned. Faced with irrefutable evidence and my declaration of war, all the public anger and sympathy that had been directed at me was transformed into fury at having been manipulated, and it was now aimed squarely at Olivia and Leo. Their social media accounts were instantly buried under an avalanche of mockery, insults, and accusations. Hashtags like #GullibleOlivia and #VampireLeo shot to the top of the Twitter trending list. The next day, the market's response was even more brutal and direct. The Hayes Group's stock hit its lower limit the moment the market opened. The sell-off was so massive that there were virtually no buyers. Trading was effectively frozen, with no hope of a recovery. To make matters worse, someone dumped several buckets of foul-smelling refuse at the entrance to their corporate headquarters, leaving the entire area reeking. Photos and videos of the scene went viral. Overnight, the Hayes family went from being sympathetic victims to business world pariahs, and a running joke for the entire internet. Their reputation was destroyed, their finances were in shambles, and they were on the verge of a complete breakdown. Finally, Mr. Hayes could take no more. He brought Olivia and rushed to the Morgan Group headquarters, desperate for a meeting with me. I was reviewing the initial draft of the lawsuit against them when my secretary informed me of their arrival. "Have them wait in the conference room," I said, my tone flat, not even looking up. They waited for 7 hours. They waited from the blazing heat of the afternoon until sunset, and then long after the city lights had come on. In the meantime, I went about my day as usual. I approved documents, signed contracts, and held a brief meeting with my executive team. I listened to a report from the Public Relations Department confirming that public sentiment had stabilized. I even found time to get in a quick workout at the company gym. Throughout the day, my secretary would quietly update me on Mr. Hayes's growing anxiety and his repeated requests for a meeting. I ignored it all. At 10 o'clock that night, with the city lights glittering like a galaxy below my window, I finally nodded to my secretary. "Send them in." The door opened, and Mr. Hayes practically stumbled into my office. The carefully constructed facade of the successful entrepreneur had vanished. All that was left was a man whose face was hollowed out by fear and exhaustion. Olivia trailed behind him, her head bowed, so low I couldn't see her face. Her shoulders were hunched, as if she were bracing for a blow. She didn't dare look at me. All her former pride and arrogance had been replaced by terror and humiliation. "Lucas, Mr. Morgan," Mr. Hayes began, his voice hoarse and trembling. We weren't thinking clearly. I'm begging you, please show mercy. Leave the Hayes family a path to survive." I just watched them in silence. The silence in the room was suffocating. The pressure soon became too much for Mr. Hayes. In a panic, he yanked Olivia forward. "Olivia, apologize to Lucas. This is all your fault. If it weren't for you, you ungrateful child, we wouldn't be in this mess." He roared, his voice a mixture of panic and fury as he tried to shift the blame. Olivia stumbled, then steadied herself and looked up, her face streaked with tears. This time, her tears weren't for show. They were born of genuine terror and regret. "Lucas, I'm so sorry. I was so stupid. I believed everything Leo told me. I was so wrong. It will never happen again." She trailed off, her shoulders trembling uncontrollably. "His lies," I repeated, my voice devoid of any emotion. "Olivia, you're an adult. You're capable of making your own decisions. Do you think saying, 'I believe his lies,' erases your family's betrayal of my family's trust?" Does it erase the fact that you publicly slandered me and tried to drag my entire family through the mud? Mr. Hayes quickly cut in. Mr. Morgan, it was all a misunderstanding, truly. Olivia was tricked by that con man Leo. He hid his marriage, his debts. He targeted her. He used her. We're victims in all this, too. He was desperately trying to paint his family as the innocent victims, to lay all the blame at Leo's feet. Victims? A cold sneer formed on my lips. Mr. Hayes, at the charity ball, when your daughter was screaming those hysterical accusations at me, where were you? Later, when you called me and so righteously condemned me for breaking Leo's leg, did you for 1 second think to verify the facts? When you were championing their true love and turning my family into the enemy, you certainly didn't seem to think of yourself as a victim. Now that the tables have turned and you're facing the consequences, you think you can just say it was all a misunderstanding and make it go away. My words left Mr. Hayes speechless. His face was ashen, and a film of cold sweat broke out on his forehead. I wasn't thinking straight. Mr. Morgan, I'm begging you, for the sake of our family's long friendship, for the sake of all those years your father and I have known each other, please show us some mercy. I can't let my family's legacy, built over generations, be destroyed. How could I ever face my ancestors? His voice grew hoarse, and he swayed on his feet, barely able to remain standing. My gaze was like a knife. Mr. Hayes, from the moment you decided to use the media to blackmail my family, from the moment you chose to slander the Morgan name for your own gain, our long-standing friendship became utterly worthless. And just so we're clear, my father has given me his full support in this matter. He has left all the decisions entirely in my hands. At this, Olivia's head snapped up, her eyes wide with shock and despair. Lucas, can you really be so cruel? Did our relationship mean nothing to you? Cruel? I cut her off, my voice like cold iron. Olivia, at the charity ball, you stood in front of all those people with Leo in his wheelchair, and you used the most vicious words imaginable to paint me as a monster. Who was the cruel one then? When you were spreading those vile rumors online, doing everything you could to destroy my reputation, did you spare a single thought for our past relationship then? And now, after everything that happened, you come to me to talk about the past. It's not just too late. It's pathetic. The color drained completely from Olivia's face. Her lips trembled, but she couldn't form a single word. Seeing that appeals to emotion and attempts to shift the blame had failed, Mr. Hayes played his last, desperate card. Mr. Morgan, if you'll just show us some mercy, lift the sanctions, let our stock price stabilize, the Hayes family will do anything. Shares, controlling interest, it's all yours. Just give us a chance to survive. I slowly shook my head, my voice flat and even. What value does your stock have now? It's nothing but a rapidly depreciating number, backed by a mountain of debt. Besides, the Morgan Group has no use for your company. The sanctions will continue. This is the price you must pay for the choices you made. That was the final blow. It shattered Mr. Hayes's last shred of composure. His legs gave out, and he collapsed to his knees, all the fight gone out of him. Olivia just stood there, her eyes vacant, clearly unable to process the fact that she had lost everything. I watched the father and daughter fall apart, and I felt nothing. Mercy to an enemy is cruelty to yourself. They started this war, and it had to end with their total destruction. As for the two of you, I continued, regarding the malicious slander against my reputation and the massive financial losses you have caused my company, the law will deliver its verdict. Everyone involved in this scheme will face the legal consequences they deserve. And with that, I gave them no further chance to speak. I had security escort them out. The office was quiet once more. I walked to the window and looked down at the glittering, indifferent city below. The fall of the Hayes family was only the beginning. A string of lawsuits, asset seizures, and liquidations awaited them. The market would pick them clean until there was nothing left but bones. As for Leo, what was waiting for him was far worse than public disgrace and a prison sentence. 3 days. It took only 3 days. The once thriving Hayes Group collapsed like a skyscraper with its foundations removed, leaving nothing but a pile of rubble. Their stock was worthless. The company was completely insolvent. Banks came calling to collect their debts. Former partners filed lawsuits. Every corporate nightmare imaginable descended upon them all at once. Mr. Hayes ran around like a chicken with its head cut off, making one last desperate struggle. He drove to our family estate himself, hoping to see my father one last time, hoping that their years of friendship might buy him some small measure of mercy. But the heavy iron gates he had once passed through so freely were now shut tight. The guard didn't even bother to announce his arrival, simply stating over the intercom in a professional tone, "Mr. Morgan is not receiving any visitors at this time. Please leave." He tried my father's private number, but the line was perpetually busy. He tried calling his old friends, the ones he used to be so close to. Most didn't answer. The few who did mumbled a few evasive words, their tone as distant as if they were speaking to a stranger. The cold reality of the world was laid bare before him. When the official bankruptcy notice from the court was delivered, his last pillar of support crumbled. He went alone to the roof of the Hayes Group headquarters. And there, he leaped, ending his life in the most final, tragic way possible. When the news reached the hospital, Olivia, who had already been tormented to the brink of a breakdown by the relentless series of disasters, finally snapped. She somehow managed to slip away from her attendants and made her way back to the family mansion, which had already been sealed by the bank and was slated for foreclosure auction. Inside, Leo Vance was hiding in what he thought was a safe room, but she found him and took him hostage. By the time the police arrived, she had locked down the entire house. A negotiator tried to reason with her, but all they could hear were her shrill screams. She had only one demand: "Get Lucas Morgan here to see me. If he doesn't come, we'll all die together." My father called, his voice low and urgent. "Lucas, don't go. She's lost her mind. She's capable of anything. Let the police handle this." I was silent for a moment. "Dad," I finally said, "some things need a proper ending. Don't worry. I'll be careful." The police had cordoned off the entire block. I could smell natural gas in the air. The situation was volatile. I put on a bulletproof vest and, under the cover of the SWAT team, approached a relatively safe position outside the house. "Olivia, I'm here." As I spoke, the front door slowly creaked open. The living room was in shambles, as if someone had gone on a violent rampage. Olivia's hair was a tangled mess, and her eyes were wild and unfocused. Her face was streaked with dirt and dried tears. She was completely unhinged. She was clutching a large, gleaming kitchen knife. Leo was tied to a heavy wooden chair, his mouth covered with duct tape. His face was white as a sheet, and his body was racked with uncontrollable tremors. One of his pant legs was soaked in blood, which dripped down the leg of the chair and pooled on the floor. It was clear he'd been injured before he was tied up. When he saw me, his eyes lit up with hope. A desperate, muffled scream came from behind the tape. "Help me. Please help me. This psycho is going to kill me." His plea earned him no pity from Olivia. Instead, it was like throwing gasoline on a fire. She turned to him, her eyes bloodshot, a low, sinister smile playing on her lips. "Help you?" "Leo, my love," she said, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "Didn't we say we'd be together forever? What are you so afraid of?" Pure terror made Leo drop all pretense. He was done acting. He tore away his last shred of dignity. "Who the hell would want to be with a crazy bitch like you? You slut. If it wasn't for your money, you think I would have ever given you the time of day?" That was the spark that ignited Olivia's last shred of sanity. She let out a blood-curdling scream and began hacking at Leo's bound leg with a knife. One swing, then another, then another. The sickening thud of the blade hitting flesh and bone echoed through the room. Leo's screams were loud enough to shake the house. They eventually faded into choked sobs until his head slumped to one side. It was impossible to tell if he had passed out or if he was dead. The floor was slick with so much blood it was hard to keep my footing. Olivia seemed to be drained of all her strength. Her hand went slack, and the knife clattered to the ground. Without a single glance at the bloody ruin in the chair, her knees gave out and she collapsed. With a trembling, blood-soaked hand, she fumbled in her pocket and pulled out a small box. Inside was a ring. It was the diamond engagement ring I had given her. She held it up, looking at me with a twisted, almost tender smile. She began to mumble to herself, her words disconnected and nonsensical. Lucas looked the ring. I still have it. It's clean now. I cut away all the filth. Can we start over? Just like before? You were always so good to me. I see that now. You were the one who really loved me. Her mind had completely shattered, trapped in some twisted version of the past. In the chair, a wave of agonizing pain seemed to drag Leo back from the brink of death. He let out a weak groan and, with the last of his strength, cursed, "Crazy, crazy bitch. You ruined my leg. I hope you rot in hell." Olivia slowly turned her head to look at the man who was cursing her with his dying breaths. The last spark of humanity in her eyes went out, replaced by a calm, all-consuming madness that was terrifying to behold. She wasn't crying anymore. She wasn't smiling. She just slowly, deliberately pulled a lighter from her pocket. My pupils contracted. I knew instantly what she was about to do, and I scrambled backward. "Lucas," Olivia said, looking at me one last time. Her eyes were empty, but held a strange sense of release. "Let's go to hell together." Click! The flint sparked. A tiny flame leaped into the gas-filled air. A deafening roar tore through the night. A fireball erupted, swallowing the entire mansion and lighting up the night sky. I looked back to see nothing but a raging, uncontrollable inferno. The wave of heat that washed over me carried the sickeningly sweet smell of burning flesh. In that instant, Olivia and Leo were turned to ash. All the tangled resentments and schemes, the so-called love and hate, all of it was erased by the flames, reduced to silence. I stood rooted to the spot. The firelight danced across my face, but inside, I felt nothing but a cold void. There was no satisfaction of vengeance, no pity for the lives lost. It was like watching the final act of some absurd play. The curtain falls, and there is nothing left, on stage or in the audience. Sirens grew louder as police cars and ambulances converged on the chaos. Someone came and draped a blanket over my shoulders, asking if I was hurt. I just shook my head, my gaze fixed past their frantic movements, into the deeper darkness of the night. The Hayes family, in the most dramatic way imaginable, was utterly destroyed, and Leo Vance had met a fitting end. This whole ugly, absurd affair had begun with a simple betrayal, and it had ended, finally, in blood and fire. Branded a cold-blooded tyrant and accused of breaking my rival's leg, a lie spun from his own drunken fall down a staircase. When I presented the notarized hospital reports and surveillance footage live, the internet screamed they were fake, that the proof was bought. But the screams died when the camera turned to a city notary, who officially verified every document on the spot. In that sudden silence, the entire web realized the truth. They hadn't been a jury, just cheap props in a drama, their outrage a tool for a narrative they never bothered to question.